Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Carisse, welcoming you to Raise the Line with Osmosis from Elsevier, an ongoing exploration about how to improve health and healthcare. And I'm very pleased to do that today with Dr. Jennifer Hunt, the Interim Dean and the Folk H. Peterson Dean's Distinguished Professor at the University of Florida College of Medicine. Prior to this role, she served as chair of the college's Department of Pathology, Immunology, and Laboratory Medicine, and chief of the hospital medical staff at UF Health Shands Hospital and Clinics. Dr. Hunt has also held academic appointments and leadership positions at some of the most prestigious health systems in the country, including the Cleveland Clinic and Massachusetts General Hospital. She's authored more than 160 peer-reviewed scientific publications in the subspecialties of head and neck pathology and molecular pathology, and is a fellow of the College of American Pathologists. Dr. Hunt is also active as an executive leadership coach and keynote speaker, so we have an awful lot to dig into today, and we're very pleased that you could take the time to join us.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to a great conversation. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So we always like to start with learning more about our guests and what first got them interested in medicine. In your case, you got on the path to pathology. How did all that happen?
Well, I guess my journey is probably similar to other people's journey in many ways, in that it was a number of really key leaders and mentors in my life that got me interested in my career path, both at the undergraduate medical school level and then well into my residency. So my very first mentor in medicine lived across the street from me. And I grew up my high school years in northern Idaho, middle of nowhere, 60 or 70 miles from the Canadian border, that little tiny panhandle up there. And across the street from me lived the one and only surgeon for a 50-mile radius.
Wow.
I think it might have been more than 50 miles in some directions. And he was a wonderful mentor early on. Rich Nair, he is retired now, but he was in practice for a very long time as the only surgeon really for very, very many miles. And I was able to work with him over a couple of summers when I was either in high school and then in college as well. And I worked at his office. I was kind of a medical assistant. And then occasionally he would have me go into the OR with him and actually scrub in, because in Idaho at that time, anyone could be the first assist, believe it or not. And I guess I was very eager and interested. This was probably into college and into medical school by then. And he taught me a lot about medicine. In fact, even in medical school and in residency, sometimes I'd call him up and say, "Hey, Rich, have you ever heard of this?" So he was my very first medical mentor, and I think got me interested in medicine from a very early age. I always thought I'd be a surgeon because of his inspiration, and that's what I knew and loved. I loved the technical side of surgery. When I was in medical school, I was pretty committed to the surgery path, and I really thought I'd go into some sort of surgical subspecialty. But I went to the Women in Medicine dinner at Penn in my medical school years one year, and I was a little bit late. I commuted in by car, and I was a little late, and there were no more seats at the surgery table, so I sat at the pathology table, and I sat next to the next important mentor in my life. That's Leslie Linsky, who told me about her life, told me about her career, told me about pathology. And I thought, wow, that sounds amazing. I want to know more about that. And that's how I found pathology.
Isn't that amazing how random it can all be? So once you got introduced generally to the field, what was it that lit the fire for you?
Well, I don't know that it got lit until I actually did it. And another whole story there, because there was a program at Penn and a number of other schools where you could do a year out from medical school and do basically a year of residency in pathology. And it would count for residency back then. So you were able to count it if you went into pathology as a year of residency. And I ended up doing that program mainly because I met Dr. Linsky and thought, oh, this is really neat. I need to explore this. And loved it from day one. So once I got in there and was looking at the microscope and enjoying the pathology cells and everything I got to look at, the fire it lit for me was the deep desire that I have to have varied experiences and different experiences all the time and every day. And if you've ever looked at pathology slides, you would realize that every single slide has something unique and different on it. And that's just the intrigue of what pathology is like. So that, I think, was what really, really did it for me.
Yeah, well, that's totally understandable. So you further specialized in head and neck pathology, endocrine pathology, and molecular genetic pathology. Tell us about those areas and some of the highlights of your work in those fields.
Same thing, more mentors, more amazing mentors. So one of my dearest, most wonderful mentors at Penn was Dr. Virginia Lavolsi. She just passed away recently after training and developing and mentoring thousands of people, I would say. And she was really the first pathology mentor in the field of head and neck pathology and endocrine pathology that inspired me. And she was not easy on us. Oh, she was tough, and she was demanding and loving all at once. And that combination of support and high expectations it drove me to love head and neck and endocrine pathology. She's a world famous thyroid pathologist. I remember I did her consult service, which meant that I would look at all of the cases that came to her. I mean, these are the hardest cases in the world, right? And they would come to her for a second opinion. And I would look at them first and then write the draft of the letter that would go back to the submitting pathologist. And then she would look at it and correct me liberally. And after I was finished and ready to go on to my own career in pathology, she said, "You have done a fine job on my consultation service."
Wow. That meant a lot.
Oh yeah, highest compliment. So she got me interested. And then my first job then was in head and neck pathology at the University of Pittsburgh, and under the mentorship there of Dr. Leon Barnes, another amazing and fantastic head and neck pathologist. Also passed away, sadly. These wonderful luminaries, they don't stay around long enough. There's more people to train. Fortunately, they leave behind people to carry on their mission and their life's work.
I am curious to know how you pay it forward and how you approach mentorship yourself, but let's stay with the areas of pathology that you're interested in. And so why molecular genetic pathology?
Yeah. So again, another great mentor, Dr. Deborah Leonard, who was my fellowship director at Penn and got me interested in molecular pathology, taught me everything I knew, which started out as practically nothing. So she really brought me a long ways in molecular pathology. She also showed me, and so did Virginia and then Leon, the true difference between mentorship and sponsorship. All three of them, as I grew in my career and recognized that difference, they all showed me what it was long before I knew the word of sponsorship. All three of them. So the way I think about it is that they opened doors for me that I never even knew they opened. Sometimes I would say to Dr. Lavolsi, "Oh my gosh, I got invited to write this chapter." And she would say, "Yes, I know." But most of the time, I don't think she even told me. I think the doors were opened by her and by Leon and by Deborah Leonard without me even knowing it. And that's, the real definition of sponsorship.
So I do want to get to your work at the University of Florida, but just one more question on pathology in general. You mentioned Dr. Deborah Leonard, who is somebody that very coincidentally, I happened to work with for quite a long time at the University of Vermont Medical Center. Wonderful scientist and leader. And I remember talking to her about concerns that people in general don't really understand just how vital pathologists are to what happens in medicine. I think she used the phrase, the doctor's doctor. So I wanted you to have an opportunity to weigh in on that as well. What are your thoughts on that?
The doctor's doctor is a phrase we like in pathology. The other way I've thought about it is the most important doctor you'll never meet. And it's truly, when you think about it, when I take my slide and I make a diagnosis of cancer, that's changing the landscape of that patient's life forever. It's basically the trajectory is being set by the words I write down on my report. And so, if you think about that crucial bifurcation in the path, that happens under a pathologist's microscope. So, most important doctor you'll never meet. There have been some people nationally who have started patient-directed consultation practices where the patient actually can meet with the pathologist and look at the slide with the pathologist. And this is obviously much easier now with virtual and Zoom. You can Zoom with a patient if you wanted to.
Right.
Kind of neat. In COVID, pathology became so central that it was amazing. Even my mother knew what PCR testing was. And would ask me about it.
It's true.
So is that a PCR test? So we became sort of very, very known and important even in everyday household settings. The pathology lab became such a crucial element to the COVID response that for the first time ever, I think it was really recognized and noticed how important pathology is to healthcare and the delivery of healthcare. So it changed. I think it changed.
Yeah, for the better.
Yeah.
I want to return to the mentorship theme because I didn't get to ask what your approach is to that now. You obviously have had decades of experience as a clinician and a leader, and you're running a college of medicine now. How do you think about mentorship and providing that sort of guidance to people?
So I think of it as three helping technologies or fields, three helping ways that we can be with other individuals. And one is mentoring, which is very traditional. And I do a lot of mentoring. Second is sponsoring, which is really kind of the mentorship, the next generation of mentorship. It's kind of the upper level of mentoring. And then the third is coaching. And I use all three of those approaches when I'm working with and helping to develop others in different settings and in different environments. They are different and they're synergistic and all important when you're helping to elevate and bring up people behind you and people in front of you. That all three important together. Mentoring being very traditional. This is the way I did it. Maybe that will help you. Sponsoring is much more about lending your credibility as a surrogate for the person and saying, I'm investing in you. I think of mentoring and sponsoring as mentorship is like buying a few shares and buying a few shares or stock in a person. And then sponsoring is like being a venture capitalist and throwing your whole fortune behind them, in that you're throwing your reputation behind that person. You are staking your reputation, your honor, your value is used to elevate the person that you're sponsoring.
Yeah, it's a good way to explain it.
Yeah, and it helps people to understand what the sponsor is really investing in them.
And then coaching.
Coaching is a totally different world. I thought coaching and mentoring were similar until I learned what coaching was. And they are very different. Coaching is really about giving a person their own resources. It's about helping them to find their own answers. It's about asking questions rather than telling. It's about helping people be their most effective self, sometimes in ways that you have never experienced, sometimes in ways that you would never dream of and never even advocate for. And yet it's the way that that person will be the most effective in their own. So I use all three of those, and I feel like that is truly part of my mission as a leader, is to help others be successful and effective in their own careers.
Well, as I mentioned, you do have a coaching focus, and in particular, you work with the next generation of women leaders in healthcare. And I'm just wondering if you want to share with us what you're seeing in that next generation that's either encouraging to you or maybe of concern.
So first of all, I love the concept of coaching, and I think it's one of the most effective tools that we have in terms of helping people to just be their most successful self. It's pretty underutilized in medicine. It's very, very, very common in business. I think most people who do an MBA know all about coaching, and they may even have coaches assigned to the MBA students, and they learn it. And then in business and in the executive world, I mean, every executive you ask probably would say they have a coach. And it's very common and kind of accepted in the norm in terms of being your own most effective self. In medicine, it's been underutilized and under-recognized, really. There have been a couple of recent papers that show how effective it is in medicine. And also it's getting a foothold. Coaching is getting a foothold, especially in leadership in medicine. We're being, as a dean now, I'm seeing more chair requests for recruitment packages that include coaching. And I think that shows that coaching is becoming a more mainstream tool that people can use to be an effective leader. I've had coaches for a long time, long before it was popular, because I was in an institution that had a coaching program, Cleveland Clinic, and it was probably one of the very first that developed that sort of coaching program. So I've been kind of fortunate to have that as part of my career development, and have been enjoying bringing that to the University of Florida as part of what I bring as a leader here. What am I seeing in terms of developing leaders and coaching? I do tend to coach women physicians who are on the leadership trajectory. It's not an intentional choice. It's who finds me. I don't have a published or a publicized coaching program. It's really just people who find me either at the University of Florida or outside and say, "Oh, wow, I would love to hear from you." And what I find is that a lot of women physicians who are interested in leadership are hesitant to say they're interested in leadership. And I gave a lecture in the last year or so, and the title of the lecture was Women Are Competent Before They Are Confident. And I find a lot of times that we have phenomenal women leaders who are hesitating and holding back and maybe not applying for those top positions that they're competent for, presumably because they somehow don't think they're ready for it. So a lot of the coaching that I do with women leaders in particular is around recognizing their own competence and their own skill set as much as other people recognize it. Because if you ask anybody else about them, oh my gosh, she's amazing. She's a phenomenal leader. So a lot of the work that I do in coaching tends to be around that.
Well, actually, I remember reading about this where it's common for males, even though they are early in their career and don't have a lot of experience, to apply for top-level positions, when the reverse is true for females who are qualified or maybe more than qualified, but are hesitating because perhaps they don't think they can check every single box in the qualifications or whatever else is holding them back. So it's definitely a broad trend.
Yeah, there's definitely some studies that have shown that. And I think we can learn two lessons from that. One is about one-on-one coaching that we can help develop people with. Second is about, thinking about how we write job ads. And if we write a job ad that has 25 competencies listed in it, we're going to get people who apply who think they don't have to meet them all because no one can meet them all. And we're gonna underrepresent people who don't feel qualified and maybe are. So we have to really rethink how we write those job ads and make sure that, we put in some of the criteria, but maybe not an exhaustive list of everything because we will skew the pool.
Oh, for sure. And some of these job descriptions go on for 3 pages, and you can't imagine anyone would be able to meet all of those qualifications.
And they are. No one will.
Yeah. So while we're on all of this talk about leadership, as I mentioned, you've had many leadership positions at some really top flight organizations in the country. And even though this is a pretty unfair question, I'm wondering if you can boil it down, to a couple of key characteristics that you think leaders in academia and healthcare need to have to be successful.
So I can definitely boil it down a little bit to a few that I just think are kind of irrefutable. One that in today's world just can't be overemphasized is the ability to communicate in a transparent and direct way. Direct communication is so crucial and so important. And by direct communication, I don't necessarily mean blunt, and I don't mean frank. I mean direct. And I guess the definition of direct communication really is about saying what you mean and saying it in a way that the other person understands it, instead of leaving room for assumptions. I find in coaching and in real life that assumptions are going to get us into trouble over and over again. And so when we communicate in a direct way, it means that we're taking out a lot of the room for assumptions and instead just being transparent and direct and saying, exactly what it is we intend. Some people interpret that as being blunt or frank and saying what they mean. Not exactly, because that can also get us into trouble.
So clarity being an essential ingredient there.
Absolutely. Clarity, checking in with the person. I mean, I don't actually do this, but sometimes I threaten to do it, to ask them to read back to me what I just said. Because sometimes we say things in a way we think is direct, and then it turns out that the interpretation on the other side was completely different. So it's actually worth doing a check-in with people and making sure that what they heard is what you said. I had one faculty member many years ago that didn't hear compliments very well. She didn't hear them. And I would say them. I'd say, you're amazing. You're a fantastic faculty member. Everything you're doing is spectacular. And she couldn't hear them. And I don't know what she heard, but finally I did resort to saying, could you say back to me what I just said? And one time she said, you said I'm doing a fine job. I said, no, I said you're amazing and excellent and awesome. But she couldn't hear it. So I did make her repeat back to me.
Yeah. Well, you got to use your instincts in those sort of situations. So, direct communication, transparency, anything else you want to add on to that
Yeah,
list?
I think integrity in today's world has got to be one of the key leadership competencies. I'll frequently say in my meetings with my team, if we're comfortable with it being published on the front page of the newspaper, then it's probably a safe decision. If
Hmm.
we're not, it still might be the decision we need to make, but we better be really sure and we better be able to defend it in a way that other people would logically follow our reasoning. And to me, that's about integrity. It's about holding the bar really high for yourself in terms of making decisions that are defensible and honest and truthful and grounded in compassion. All of the things that we kind of hold true as core values need to play out in our actions. There's a phrase I love in coaching. I use this a lot, and that is that every belief has a trail of action.
Yeah. What's behind? How'd you get there?
Yeah. And if the actions that you have don't match your belief, you either have to re-examine whether you really had that belief or whether you're acting true to your. Either way, there's something to re-examine.
Yeah. No, that
So I would say those three things, transparency and communication and integrity are sort of indisputable ones. There's many, many other leadership characteristics and competencies that are incredibly valuable. To me, those three, if you don't have them, you're going to suffer as a leader and it's going to be a hard road.
well said. So let's shift now to your position at the University of Florida College of Medicine and what some of your priorities are. An overview would be great, I think, for our audience to hear, and also what you think some of its particular strengths are.
Well, the University of Florida is a spectacular and amazing place. And I knew this 15 years ago. I was visiting professor here. It has to be 15 years ago now. And I walked into these buildings, and I walked on campus and I thought, this is an incredible place. I would love to work here one day, having no idea that I would actually end up working. It was fate. And it's so funny that I got a mug as a gift, for being visiting professor, and I had kept it all these years. And when I was getting ready to move, I found that mug, that old mug. And it was really like,
The universe is sending you signs.
it was a sign for sure. It's an amazing place. It's the beautiful things about College of Medicine here at the University of Florida. One thing, we're on the main campus, so we have this vibrant, amazing community of scientists and students and faculty and staff that's huge. I mean, our community is absolutely enormous. So we get to collaborate with people in all sorts of different fields, engineering and arts, and you name it. We have collaborations and we have access to pretty amazing resources here. The students are top notch. We get some of the top students in the Southeast. We get worldwide. We get students from all over the world. So the education here is really can't be beat at the undergraduate and the graduate levels. Ranked usually top 5 in the country for public institutions, and we just have really everything you could ever want. Now we're one of the new Ivies, and it's true. I'm constantly impressed by this institution. At the College of Medicine level, we have a lot of strengths. We are a top program in transplant, liver transplant, kidney, heart, lung. We have unbelievable transplant results, and the program is very, very strong. It's really ranked top in the country in a number of different areas. We have top rankings in neuroscience, in terms of funding, in terms of productivity, neurosurgery, top ranked in the country. So we have some key programs that are really jewels in the crown of the University of Florida. Then we have so many that are just amazing that I haven't even mentioned, can't even count the number of strong programs we have here. So to me, we have it all at the University of Florida. We also have 2 campuses. We have 2 academic medical centers in very different settings. So we have the campus here in Gainesville, which is much more rural, but draws from a huge catchment area. And then we have an academic campus in Jacksonville, which is a very big city focus and a safety net hospital in underserved urban community. So we have both aspects. And now we have community hospitals in our network too, in our system. So we are able to provide educational venues that cover all of the practice of medicine. That also opens up possibilities for our research, for doing community-based research, for doing clinical trials enrollment across lots of different venues and settings. So there's not anything we don't have. That sounds like I'm bragging. There's not anything we don't have. University of Florida, College of Medicine, medical center, health system, we have it all. And it's an embarrassment of riches. There's nothing that you look at and say, wow, I wish we had this. It's a pretty spectacular place. I feel like I landed here. I knew that this was a great place. And when I got here, it's been just even above any of my dreams. Better than anything I could have imagined.
Wow, that's wonderful. I'm curious about the curricular side of things because so much seems to be in flux there. COVID kicked off a lot of changes in how people, were approaching things, obviously, and a lot more online learning and digital technology and AI and everything else. So talk a little bit about, how your curriculum is set up now to deal with that and what's on your mind in terms of preparing students for this world, particularly with AI. Obviously, it's going to become part of their daily lives as providers.
Yeah, one of the really great strengths of UF at the institutional level, but also at the College of Medicine, is actually in artificial intelligence. We have I think it's either the biggest or it's one of the biggest supercomputers on any campus in the country, Hypergator. And it's amazing resource. What it does is allows our faculty and our physicians and researchers to do a lot of AI work in medicine and actually in healthcare. So we have a pretty strong program in quality and patient safety that's based on AI. And a lot of the innovative work that's happening in quality and patient safety is generated from AI analyses through the computer resource, which is unparalleled. And I mean, we have it. It's just right here, accessible even to our students. Our undergrads can access this supercomputer.
Wow.
Pretty neat things happening. So we have a lot of science happening around AI and a lot of innovation in clinical care, all the way from a virtual ICU, like a whole ICU and the metaverse, down to revenue cycle AI. I mean, pretty neat stuff across the whole spectrum of healthcare. So we have it and it's happening. Now, what you asked, though, is about how we're educating on it. We do have a curriculum for our undergrads and our medical students on AI in healthcare. And so they're able to go through a curriculum. Actually, the faculty can go through it too. It's an open access curriculum for medical people to go through. And then we're also starting to launch a couple of degree programs, which I suspect they're master's degree programs. I suspect a lot of our medical students will consider doing as a combined degree. So AI in healthcare. And I think it's going to be very attractive for our undergrad medical students to think about a combined degree program with that. So lots of opportunities to be educated, also to do research and to do clinically relevant research in AI and healthcare here.
Are you still practicing?
I wish I could turn my computer around and you could see my microscope sitting right here. I am practicing pathology, still doing head and neck pathology. I do a little less now because my schedule is not as friendly as it used to be.
Sure. No, I ask only because I'm curious about how AI has impacted you, if at all.
So in pathology, you would think it would have a lot of applications. The applications have so far been relatively narrow. And they are there and starting to be implemented in certain areas. For example, interpreting Pap smears has some AI work behind it in order to make it more streamlined and efficient to find the cells that are abnormal on a smear that has millions of cells. And so that's a really nice application of AI that's coming into practice. But surprisingly, not a lot of applications in real life, everyday practice. Probably because, frankly, most of pathology can be done on a microscope with a glass slide. Even molecular pathology has not replaced that good old-fashioned microscope.
Yeah. So we've come to the point where I get to ask you one of my favorite questions, which is, can you provide us some direction? Osmosis, as you may know, is an education company, and we love to have our guests tell us about something that they're particularly concerned about or interested in, or they think there's a gap in knowledge, a myth, something that needs to be cleared up, or something that should be better understood. And you would say, Osmosis, it'd be great if you could make a video about that or a course about that. What would that be for you?
I have a really important one, and I would be so grateful if you filled it. And that is from my life as chief of staff. I was chief of staff in Arkansas, and I was chief of staff here. And I love that job. But what I found over and over again is that physicians coming into practice have no idea about the process of credentialing and privileging and medical staff and what it means, and all of the accreditation standards around clinical practice. It's a real gap. I mean, they'll get the credentialing packet for the first time going into practice and have absolutely no idea why we're asking things, what we're asking, how to find the documents. And it becomes this big labor because they have to go through the whole packet and fill all this out without really understanding what credentialing and privileging is and how it interfaces with the hospital and the medical staff. Most all physicians will be credentialed somewhere. Unless you're really purely outpatient private practice, not admitting to a hospital, everybody else who has any interface with a hospital will go through credentialing and privileging. And there's just a huge knowledge gap for our graduating residents around what it even means. That would be really useful to graduating residents.
Well, you have the distinction of joining a very exclusive group of people who in 500 shows have suggested something to us that we have not heard before. So that's one of them, and it's a wonderful idea. And of course, there's so much to cover in medical school that naturally some things are going to be missed along the way, but that's a really good one. So I'm sorry to say we're getting to the end of our time, so I'll have to wrap it up with this question, which is just, give us your go-to advice to the many students that you advise, I'm sure on a regular basis, about how to approach their career in healthcare at this particular time. It's obviously a very challenging time. What would you tell folks?
Well, one of my favorite lectures I've ever given around leadership development is something I call GPS leadership development. And here's the concept. Back when I was a kid, as somebody said to me recently, she said, I trained in the 1900s. Back when I was a kid in the 1900s,
eons ago,
when we would go on a road trip, we would have a map, like a real physical map, and you had to make sure it folded up right. And it was this big thing that spread out over the dashboard. And before you left home, you would map out your course and you would kind of draw it on there. Notice where you're going to turn, what highways you were going to look for. And then somebody would be the navigator and somebody would be the driver. Oh, turn right. That's the road we're supposed to turn right on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very structured path. You planned it out and you stuck to it. And if you missed a turn, you actually did a U-turn and backtracked, found your road again, and you stuck with the plan. Today we have GPS and I am completely and totally dependent on it. I cannot get anywhere without it. And I plug in my destination and I assume I'm going to arrive. And I follow the directions and sometimes I miss and it just reroutes me. And I'm totally okay with that. And I arrived at that place somehow, not knowing what the path was going to be. And so I like to think of leadership development and career development as being more benefited more from GPS than it did the old-fashioned map. If you don't plan out and structure your entire path, you're going to learn and grow in ways that you could never predict. And they're wonderful. So you allow the path to evolve. As long as you have that destination in mind and you know kind of directionally where you're headed, you can allow the path to evolve and you can reprogram and you can recalculate and you can go on tangents and you can meander a little bit. And you're directionally correct, but you're learning and growing in so many fantastic ways. And so my advice to people who want to plan out their career and their leadership path is to just plan a vague destination and then allow the path to unfold before you, because it will be amazing and you'll have incredible journeys along the way.
Well, that is not only wonderful advice, but it's a wonderful way to help people picture it. I'm old enough to remember the maps. Wasn't so easy, was it?
Never get it folded back up again.
No, nobody knew how to do that. Well, listen, this has been a delight, Dr. Hunt. I'm so glad that you could spend time with us today, and we wish you all the best there at the University of Florida.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
With that, I'm Michael Carisse. Thanks very much for joining us. And as always, remember to do your part to raise the line and strengthen the healthcare system. We're all in this together.
If you like this podcast, please share it on your social channels. You can also subscribe to the series and check out all of our episodes at osmosis.org/raisethelinepodcast.